The drama in the crypto is not yet over. It does seem like things are moving and it does not look good for a lot of investment firms who actually had a lot of exposure into these areas. Now, that's where all of this gets interesting, right? When we have a thought process where we look something at like this and say, okay, there is a huge possibility this may drop hard, even if the measured move is wrong, and you can still come to $5, $4. That's actually huge. But that's not the only viewpoint in the market, right? Everyone will have a different thought process. So when we actually see some accounts which is comparatively much bigger than what we are, it does show you a different perspective. But what we are talking about is based on our experience, right? We've talked about Luna here, saying, okay, this may drop hard. We talked about Celsius here, saying this may drop hard. But there is still a difference between the Luna, FTX, and Celsius, because Celsius came back up, retesting this level, showing some level of confidence in the buying side. Now we are doing a retest. We are going to test this bottom. That's all good, great. It's possible. But what's more important is last time when Celsius dropped, there was pain in the market. When Luna dropped, there was a lot of pain in the market. So the question remains, if Solana is to drop. Now it's already close to $8, $8.5, and it bounced to 9, but it still has a further move to the downside. If that happens, with this coming, what will the market look like? That's going to be a big question to try and answer. Yes, I do not neglect the possibilities in the market. There are assets like this which actually show you a pattern and then starts breaking higher. So yes, there will be things like this which will be, rare case scenarios for which you'll have to hunt through 300, 400 assets a day to find just one. I agree. And if you want to follow those, you can look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal retail guys learn how to become the next top 10%. Now here in this one, we were actually discussing about the measured move of this consolidation pattern going all the way down, right? And now when you go look at the market, yes, it did show us some volume which was increasing towards the sell side of it. And that's why we had a thought process like, okay, this can come down to this point. And now when we look at that, it went even lower, a little bit lower, right? So market does show you these kind of things when it is being printed. But the issue is the volume is something which is being manipulated. There's a lot of wash trading happening in a lot of different exchanges. So when you are trying to look for assets, now you will literally have to break those down. Say, for example, you go into this particular asset. Now we are coming lower to the markets. There is a lot of different exchanges involved. So you'll have to go look at the different pairs and see like, okay, where the volume actually is. If it's Binance, I'm happy with it. If it's BitTrue, I'm happy with it. So depending on which pair you are looking to trade, you need to make sure you know how volatile or manipulated that asset can be before you jump into trade. Now, looking at the Bitcoin, this broke to the downside. We talked about the same. Now, on a 4-hour chart, the issue here is last time when you crossed to the upside, which should be bullish, you followed out with this. Now, that's a 4-hour chart, so it's short term. This time when you're crossing to the upside, now the question remains, are we going to do something like this? If so, then we are going to come down to this level. Now, we talked about this scenario previously, breaking the downside, coming back to the downside, because we have seen things happening in the market. Taking the same concept into XRP, we kind of made a double bottom pattern which went up, but the moving average got us kicked back down. This trend line, we barely tested that one. We did not really touch that lane, but we got rejected. Now we are trying to see whether this particular support holds for XRP. If it does, that's actually good. Now, all of these are short-term charts, but here in the altcoin scenario, we are looking for a big gap, right? The macro scenario for this does show you we have not done any big movement in the market. Agreed. But when we look at the market itself, it does show you there is a lot happening. And this particular clip actually gives you the idea that there is going to be a big meltdown in the banking side. And if that's happening, now you literally have to see, okay, what should I look for? Because when you are investing, we all know that what you need to be focused on is on the fundamentals. Back in the days when we were talking about Solana, if you were here, you already remember, maybe it's November, maybe it's December last year, Solana started getting a lot of network outages one by one. So it comes this month, this week, next month, next week. It was not one off. So at that time, we had a chart saying, okay, this does not look good. It has already completed 3 waves, and the price, remember, the price of Solana at that time was close to 200. Now, I did not actually get the exact top, 258. The call was a little bit odd. It was 200 range. Great. But we get the idea. Fundamentals started getting ruined at that level. Then the wave structure was completed. Now we are in that cycle of bear. Agreed. You got that 3-wave structure. Now we are going down to the next wave, which is to the downside. So if you have a confusion, what you can easily do is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you actually happen to see this 3-wave structure to the upside. Now the primary question would be like, okay, you got this 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you actually put that into the picture, 1, 2, and 3, your 3 waves to the downside is almost being completed. Now, we really don't know where this is going to bottom. It can be $8, it can be $5, because when you zoom out and measure, this is going to be important for the entire market. So it's not like I don't have Solana. It's like, okay, I should know what's happening here, because as we saw, when these coins melted down, it did take a hit into the market, because a lot of institutions, big traders, investment firms, they were having exposure to these assets. So right now, when we observe people who had exposure to Celsius, Luna, FTT, all of them are also talking about Solana highly, and the price is still dropping. So they were talking about this stuff all the way from here, 20s, 25s, when it was showing that there's a possibility to the downside, right? If that happens, we will be observing some more pain in the market like these. Imagine there is some 2 or 3 small investment firms having high exposure to Solana, because if you are in the market, you do get this understanding. Okay, they are talking about this like Ether was $88. Now, take that concept, go into the charts, look for Ether when it was $88. Now, all of you who are watching me for some time know that we bought Ether from 85 towards 222. Then we did not buy Ether, we were selling till the top. Now, I did not get the absolute top, I agree. We closed somewhere around 3,500. Great. But now the question comes like, okay, here when you talk about this $88 Ether, do you actually recognize the pattern being formed? If you took your time and listened to the wave structure we just talked, now you get the idea. 1, 2, 3, wave to the downside. So your impulse was to the downside. There is no questioning that. Now you observe wave 1, wave 2, and wave 3 to the upside, and the same to the downside. But this is where it started. This is where it ended. So you don't actually see the price coming back to this area. So that's actually strong. Great. Now this cycle again, when you are focusing on this side of it, do you really see that impulse structure to the downside? You can see a short-term distribution phase or a reaccumulation phase, but it actually broke to the downside. So I'll weigh more on the distribution phase of this. Now, put that argument here, and we can, as we just talked about Solana, say, okay, this asset on this term shows you like it can drop 60%. So $700 per Ether is being a possibility. Now you connect these two lines and see, okay, we are breaking to the downside. So for Ether, you do have issues. Now, why is that? when central banks who operate on this to adopt that technology come out and say, okay, we don't actually see this being viable for as a technology for us to use, that's negative fundamentally. That's negative fundamentally. Now you go look at XRP on a macro time scale and then think about what's happening on the fundamental side, because that's what's being priced in. We just saw what happened with Solana. We just looked at what's happening right now with Ether. Now we are looking for things which are evolving, because we also, what happened with Luna, what happened with Celsius, we don't want to be in that kind of trend when the stock market is suggesting you, I'm doing this. When the gold is showing, yeah, I have a short-term pattern, we don't know where it's going to break, but if that happens to break to the upside, that's going to be super bullish. If not, you're going to see a correction before it actually go back up. So during this time, when you are sitting there and observing that the dollar is dropping hard, it's not slowing down, and it does give you a picture of, yeah, there is a possibility that I may go back up as a corrective move, an impulse to the upside before you finally come back down. That still is a possibility, you cannot deny that. But if you actually happen to break this to the downside, then bears are so strong, buyers are not even getting a chance to do this. One thing which you should keep in mind right now is that dollar gets some strength when this happens, the rate hikes, right? The economy is suggesting more strength in the market, saying, okay, dollar should be strong. But we still have 33 more days for the next meeting. That means you still have a month more to see more pain in the dollar dropping. But right now, there is a lot of confusion. One of which is that when you go look at, say, for example, USD to INR, you're observing this being at all-time highs, close to the highs, right? It's at the top. It's not actually dropping because dollar is dropping and the rupees is also dropping. In other words, fiat currencies are having a hard time. And then you come back looking at different pairs and you're like, okay, that's kind of same. It's moving higher and it's still close to that highs. It did wick lower to that support and it's bouncing. So if you are here in the market and you're observing this, you're like, okay, this does look like a bull flag and this can go higher. Which means this dollar, even if it's dropping, other fiats are going to go down because there is always a little bit of demand for the reserve currency and it is getting the benefit of that. And if the reserve currency itself is dropping like this, imagine what a lot of other currencies are going to do. You may actually see the price action of those currencies which trended higher coming back down. Now, that won't just be a speculation because on the other side, you actually see a possibility of this happening. We're waiting for that retest to be completed and the bounce to start. It will take some time because the volatility is still here at the lower end, which is actually positive. And as you see that reducing to the downside, you will be able to see how the market moves. Now, positive news, negative news, everything is in the market. It all depends on how you conceive that and how you try to digest that information. Because so when you're here in the market and you're trying to jump around, again, make sure what's the liquidity in that asset. You do see a lot of fluctuation, but if you don't have enough money to go in and come out, it's going to be a trouble. It's not about your portfolio. It is about the market for that asset. So when you have liquidity, it kind of gives you more certainty that you can get in and you can get out with that profit. So choose these assets wisely because in the market, you will see a lot of assets doing good numbers, big numbers, but then you don't have enough liquidity. $600, $1,000 moving in and out is going to be really hard for most of us. If you put in $1,000 and it did actually do a 10x, you still will not be able to take that money out. So keep that in mind when you're doing these short-term trades. But always keep in mind the long-term trades is one of that which actually gives you that profit, and it should be based on the fundamentals. And when we go back and look at these fundamentals, how things are evolving, yes, the SEC is being a barrier. It's being an obstacle for XRP. It does not look like the price is moving up. But now you actually zoom out back on XRP on a macro terminology and look at it like you are looking at Ether. Fine. Now, if you use things which a lot of people do use, you can actually plot this and say, okay, this has been a range which we were looking to go to the upside. Now, that was a wrong tool. We'll go for the fib and say like, okay, you're observing that the price actually went up. It retraced way more than it should be. It's not that golden retracement level, right? You did not get the bounce. But now you try and move into an area where this actually works. Like for me, I do think fib can be useful. But when you're using that, you literally have to see where it's actually coming back on a short term. I do not think it's good for long term, whereas it does give you some idea on the short term horizon. Now you came back to 0.786, you're flirting with that level. That's all good, that's all true. Now you try to put in the top to the bottom and you come here to see what's the possibility which the price can actually really do. Because we have seen price doing these things again and again over time. And yes, you do have to give time to the market, because if you give that time and the market does these things which it has done in the past, now you are on the right side. But the real issue here is that, okay, are we actually seeing a bearish pattern? Are we going to break to the downside? So we are at a critical level in XRP where we really want to see breaking higher. The other side is strength, new buyers coming into the market suggesting we are breaking to the upside. That is going to be mandatory, because right now on a 3-day chart, you can actually see the sellers have strength. If you are just looking at the price action, you would actually put that argument. If it's me, I would put that argument saying like, okay, look at this. Last 2 days of bulls have been erased by an engulfing candle of bear, which does show you like sellers are still in control. They have not faded away. So yeah, you go into a weekly chart and you're like, okay, we did observe a big candle to the downside, a slow bounce. Now we are coming back down. So yes, we are at a support, but getting a bounce is going to be super important here. Moving above the moving average, the 21-day moving average, the green line here is going to be super important. Now you can go on a daily chart and follow it closely to recognize whether you're getting that change in trend. If you see the price moving above this moving average, now that's some relief. It's something like this, you can go higher, but not be towards that $10,000, $50,000 a lot of people claim, but you may see some good gains. First, we need to break above this. That's going to be the hard and key part, and Bitcoin will also have to react to that market situation. Right now, when you are looking at Bitcoin, even on a daily, 3-day, weekly, whatever time frame you'd like to, you will still fall into that range saying, okay, it is still possible for this asset to do a downside towards $15,000 before it actually bounces higher. Or else, to invalidate that, you need to see the price moving above these moving averages, both the 20 and 50. Because usually when we see the 20 crossing 50 to the upside, it does not actually show you like we are moving in that direction. But when the price moves above the moving average, now it follows the direction of the moving average. So it's really important for us to recognize what the market is suggesting. Even on a short-term horizon, the price is below the moving average, which is not that great on a positive note. So you do have to wait before you make big decisions. So each asset in your portfolio, make sure you are taking time to properly analyze them, So make sure you're taking time to properly analyze them, each assets in your portfolio, looking for what they're doing. Now, it should not be on a short-term horizon unless you're doing a trade. It can be from 7 days to 30 days to a quarter. Now, if you are having a little bit more horizon, you can go to a daily. But yeah, looking for next 3 months, next 6 months, a quarterly chart can be really useful. Looking at these assets, which actually went up, now coming back down, but testing at a bottom, showing you like, okay, the wave structure is just starting. Some of these are showing, okay, I'm starting to trend back higher. Some of these are showing you I'm moving back down below the previous bottom. So there are concerns in some assets. There are stability in some assets. There are small positive signs in some assets. You need to recognize that and understand whether you have assets like this, which is breaking to the downside, but still has downside in the market structure. If so, you should be concerned there. If not, the fundamentals are strong, the price is holding, it will be fine. You'll have to have a lot more patience. So if you are having that level of confidence and patience in the market and you're watching this Please do hit that like and subscribe button. And if you have another 5 to 10 minutes more, please do visit this channel of mine and watch the videos. It's about life, success, and how you can thrive without looking at the market situation. You do prepare the liquidity, you put in the market, let the market work for you, let your money work for you on the other side. When you bring in new cash flow and drop it into your investments, making them bigger over time in terms of number of assets. When the market is lower, that's when you get more units for your price. So use that theory for your advantage when the market is bad for all of us. Make that a good in your next 3 years, 2 years future. So that's it for today, guys. I'll meet you on the next video. Bye-bye.